I had this grandiose sense that I could like achieve something insane. Most founders do, but when you've got bipolar disorder, you have this grandiose sense of ego and self, and like you're almost on a completely different level to everybody else, so you look down at people, and then you make stupid decisions based off it, and that's the problem. It's incredibly deadly if not treated. Destroys people's lives. It almost destroyed my life. See, those are the moments where you're like, all of this was worth it.
I had a lovely chat with Abby beforehand.
Yes.
And when I get straight into the deep end, she was who you called when you were stood on Putney Bridge. I have heard you speak about that story a bunch of times, and I always think, what was said? What was that conversation? What did she say? And if you can give it a little bit of context to people that haven't heard this story, that'd be great.
Context is that in 2020, I went through a very, very, very difficult patch. Early 2020 really started in December, but then moved into December 2019, and then into January of 2020, where I start to feel my my mood and my thoughts and sliding into a deeper depression than I'd ever felt in my life before. There was a bunch of things that happened in late 2019. I kind of left the company I was building. I ruptured my ACL playing rugby. My car floated down the Thames. When, yeah, not many people know this actually. Yeah, it made the Daily Mail and German press because it was a convertible BMW that right down by Putney. Basically, Abby had parked it there. They'd shut the Thames barrier, and they hadn't told anybody. And so obviously, and this was like the rain. There was basically flood rain, for a week, and the water level rose by like 2 meters more than it should have at Putney Embankment. My car was parked by the embankment, and it was picked up by the water and floated 200 meters down the river. So that all happened in the space of a couple of months, and I was going through this like deep crisis of who was I. I deeply resonated with being a founder. It was my first company. It hadn't gone right. Like, I basically had kind of failed, I felt, even though the company is now doing like several million in revenue under my mum's stewardship, and it was her who built that. And so I sat down in January. I sat down with Abby in our flat in Putney, and I basically said, I'm depressed, but this is more than that. Like, I'm having quite deep suicidal thoughts, struggling to get out of bed, didn't know who to turn to, basically. She was incredible. Basically, at every single turn, every single day, she was there. I basically spent my time in the gym for like 2 months. But it got worse and worse, and to the point where I was now planning to take my own life. And there was one day, and the crazy thing about all of this is I actually struggle to remember most of it. It was so deeply like scarring. But one day I'd left my parents' house and I got on the train on the Met line, and I just started to hear these voices. They weren't my voices. They were somebody else's voices. It was a man's voice, don't know who it was, telling me. They're getting louder and louder. The train was kind of becoming more and more silent, and these voices were becoming more and more like preeminent. And it was telling me I'm not good enough, I'm crap, like everybody knows that you're shite, like this is your time. You need to You need to step away now and end it. And I was like like a bit dazed on the train, but kind of like tears in my eyes, coming to the conclusion that this was it. I was being told to do it, and I didn't know what to do. Abby had told me when this was starting to get worse and worse that if something you need to take this forward, like you need to call me. So I'd got to Putney, and I decided at Putney Bridge Station that I was going to do it on Putney Bridge. And so I got to the top of Putney Bridge and I called Abby and I basically said, like, I've got to go. She was like, what do you mean? I was like, you told me to call you. This is my time. And she said something I'll never forget. And I actually don't remember most of the conversation, to be honest with you. I remember like the hazy parts. But she said to me, James, like, the problem is you jump off Putney Bridge, it's too shallow. So the R&I will just come and get you. You'll have a broken leg. There's no point. Do it somewhere else. And I was like, I was in floods of tears, shaking, but then also like, it really resonated with me. I was like, fuck, she's probably right. So I left the bridge and I called her. Oh, well, we spoke as I got to the flat. We live 5 minutes from the bridge. And I just sat down in a mess. And it was at that moment where I was like, okay, well, what I now understand is a level of psychosis I was experiencing. And the need to want to end my life was my first like foray into bipolar disorder. But also there's just a lot of shit that comes with, I think, almost a lifetime of some bullying, rejection, wanting to feel like I've got friends, all this kind of stuff. Playing the class clown, living up to that moment, which was there's this whole like 20 years of trauma. And it opened itself up on that train and then carried on. And I think after that as well, I tried again on Edgware Road platform, and it was the same voices, same voices, same stuff again. And I think it was because I kind of hung my hat on building a company which was going to validate me. And then when it didn't, I had no idea who I was or what to do. And I felt like such a deep failure. The only way to deal with this was to let my brain run away with itself and end it. And yeah, thankfully I didn't. I think for Abby, it's so traumatic to go through that I still feel an element of guilt about it now. She probably doesn't know this, but I don't know whether she'll watch this. She probably will, actually, because you had your conversation. She'll want to know what I said. But I still feel an element of guilt now because there was such deep burden on her to make sure that I was well. And she would say, well, I love you. I just did it out of love. And that is incredible. But there's still just guilt. Now I'm more stable than I've ever been, I would say. That there's an element of guilt and burden. And I am sorry for that. But equally, this is me now.
That's an epic story. So thank you so much for sharing. And I know what you mean. I can't say I can relate at all. I haven't ever been in that situation, but I can understand why you would feel that level of guilt that you're sort of burdening someone else. I suppose the founder mentality that so many of us have is we can solve our own problems. We're relatively independent. We're here to like go and make the world better, and we can fix our own shit if we need to. And that's why I think so few people reach out for help, because that muscle of asking for support isn't very well trained. Before we go into that with you and your relationship with asking for help, you touched on two things being contributing factors. So you ended up in this really dark place. One is traumatic experiences when you're younger, and the other is what you now realize is you're bipolar when it was pre-diagnosis. What balance do you think nature and nurture have in these sorts of scenarios, or at least just in your scenario? You've got bipolar, which is nature, but actually the bullying and other things.
I think it's everything, actually. I had we didn't know. I think I've got a predisposition to bipolar disorder.
What does that mean?
Well, about 65% of bipolar disorder is passed down genetically. And we're not sure whether my dad, for example, has got it. Like, we kind of see he exhibits some traits. Now I know more. I'm obviously like, okay, well, this is fairly obvious. He's undiagnosed. Of course, he's 75, and why would he go get a diagnosis? He doesn't care. And I love him deeply. And but it's been very interesting now over the last year since I got my diagnosis, that just piecing together what happened and why. The other thing about bipolar disorder is it can be triggered by trauma. So the most traumatic thing that ever happened to me was when my grandfather died in 2017. And it happened so suddenly that I almost felt I lost my way. And so I think impulsivity, mood swings, and which basically somewhat encompass a lot of bipolar disorder, can be traced back to those moments and that history where there is something, I think, running through my family. My great aunt has been sectioned, for example. We have no idea what it is. She's kind of been sectioned around psychosis, but never really diagnosed it either. So there's like you piece bits together. I think on nurture, like I don't know. I was always shorter than everybody else at school, and I still am probably shorter than most as I've moved into my adult life. But I think it plagued me because I felt like I was the odd one out. I felt left out a lot. It meant that I tried too hard with friends and to be liked. I wanted this desperation to be liked because it meant that I would have friends. I still see some of this now as going into founder life, but also my friendships. It can hurt me deeply. I overthink, and I'm like, dude, just live your own fucking life, you know? Like, nobody gives a shit. But there's been certain relationships where I've wanted somebody to like me so much that I'd bend over backwards for them, and it would go on for so long, and I think they would abuse that power. And so that has kind of left this trauma scale, which ignites in certain moments around wanting to be liked and fear of failure and kind of ego and wanting to be something, which stems from there. And as you can tell, I've done a lot of work on this with psychologists, psychiatrists, etc. But me talking about that, like, there's going to be so many other people who resonate with that. They probably just don't want to admit it. But it has such an effect on who you are and how you actually grow up. And I am not like perfect now. In fact, I'm far from it. I'm still seeing a psychologist. I'm seeing a guy called Dr. Yariv Ganor, who's a startup psychologist, who, by the way, you should think about having on this podcast. He's incredible. He comes over to London. He's Israeli. He comes over to London a lot. But we've picked apart my relationship with who I am as a person and how that's had a real effect on me as a founder, and how that spins out into my relationships, which we'll get on to. But yeah, the nature nurture debate is everything within mental illness. It's either the catalyst or it's the embryo, right? And it depends which one just blows up first.
Quick 10-second pause to say that our newsletter is the highest value per sentence in your inbox. We share systems, prompts, and scripts that you can use today, because content without action is just noise. All the links in the description. Now, let's get back to the episode. And so did you feel like your grandfather's death was a trigger for your bipolar? You didn't realise you noticed many traits before then?
I don't think I saw bipolar traits before then. I saw kind of like depression traits and quite deep insecurities. Then when he died, there was almost a switch that was flicked quite slowly over a course of probably a year. But decisions I was making, which probably were I was drinking too much. Like I'd really ramped up my like drug intake as well.
Is it like recreational drugs?
Yeah. No, yeah. And I was not looking after myself. I was trying to mask a lot of what I was feeling. I was in a long distance relationship with an amazing girl, but like we'd been together for 6 years, and she's like a journalist now. Hilariously, that most of my friends now have to listen to every single morning because she's on like national radio, yeah, I basically instantly felt, for whatever reason, that I couldn't be with her. So I drove up to Birmingham, ended it, drove back down, like completely callous, like no emotion. She didn't even see it coming. And it was then those things where I was like trying to, I was impulsively doing things. I also had this, with the first company, I had this grandiose sense that I could like achieve something insane. Most founders do, but when you've got bipolar disorder, you have this grandiose sense of ego and self, and like you're almost on a completely different level to everybody else. So you look down at people, and then you make stupid decisions based off it, and that's the problem. I was doing those, and yeah, it was just unchecked. And I was lucky that I was doing it on quite a low level. Like I didn't really have much money to spend. Overspending's huge with bipolar disorder. So yeah, my mum asked me this the other day. We were on a dog walk and we were talking about it, and she was like, "But what's triggered all of this?" And I was like, "I think it's Granddad dying. And also I think it might be somewhere in my dad." And she kind of just paused for ages. And I think it dawned on her. She was like, interesting. And I think part of the other thing about bipolar disorder is if you know somebody with bipolar disorder, or you have it and you're trying to talk to your friends and family, there's a very difficult barrier around educating oneself to engage in conversation with somebody with bipolar disorder or vice versa. So, for example, I find it difficult often to engage with my parents around this because they're not. I don't think they've really like invested that much time into understanding the condition. On the other hand, Abby has, because she has been with me every step of the way. She was in the first, and she was in the first several psychiatry meetings, and it was a group effort. I don't think my friends have either, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just saying can be very difficult to like express yourself when you're constantly having to like explain certain things, and that can be a challenge.
So to help people listening,
Yeah,
can you talk to some of the traits and then help people empathize with what's specifically difficult? Let's say if you were talking to your friends and you're like, oh, they actually haven't done that much research, what would they need to know for it to be really impactful for you?
yeah. So bipolar disorder is like a mood. It's a mood disorder, right? Some might say, well, everybody has moods. Well, yes, everybody does have moods, but my moods are far more. There's a scale; they're far more on the extreme end of moods. So I can be in periods where I'll have a depressive episode, could last 3 months, and all the traits of being in quite a deep depression extend over this 3-month period. Funnily enough, when I'm in my deep depressive episode, that's often where I have my best ideas. So for me, depression is actually not, I wouldn't say it's a good thing, but
it's a tactic.
When I'm in there, I'm like, I have to just let go of everything, like clear my diary. It can take me a while to get out of, and it can be really, really brutal. And obviously, if it's not treated, then it can lead to you ending your life. But that's where I will sit and like I will basically create my way out of it. And my psychiatrist calls me a very high functioning depressive, basically, which I took that as a compliment. So that's one end of the scale. The other end of the scale is you go into these periods called hypermania and mania. Hypermania sounds more extreme than mania, but it's actually not. Hypermania is where you have these periods. These periods could last a day, could last a week, can last a month, of being much more intense than you would be if you were in a normal period or depressive episode. So I'll have a period of high energy, become a lot more impulsive. I will do like a million, like I'll do 1,000,001 things at once. My brain is going 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'll make stupid decisions often. I have a slightly higher sense of self, levels of grandiosity. A good example is in 2020, what was it? It was 2020. I helped Alistair Campbell launch his book on depression in the studio. And some like lights, camera, action, everything. I was presenting, and I left the studio, and I was like, I'd basically not slept for 3 days, which is a hallmark of hypermania. Your sleep you go from 8-9 hours of sleep to 3-4 hours of sleep, and you're constantly doing shit. And I basically wasn't sleeping for like 3 or 4 days before, and then I did the event with Alistair. I got in a car and was driven, and I stopped the car. I said to Abby, we've got to go to Sainsbury's. I basically was running around Sainsbury's, putting everything in my basket. We've got to get this. She was like, what the fuck are you doing? Got to get this, got to get it. I basically tried to buy the entirety of the shop. She was like, we're not getting any of this. You can get that. So I did, but I was like properly pissed off. Left Sainsbury's, walked down the road to our flat, and sat on the sofa, burst into tears. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Don't know what have I just done? How have I just done that? I'd gone from this hypermanic, like running around a shop, to being depressed in the space of 2 hours. Couldn't get off the sofa. those are the scales that we can deal with. If you move into mania, that's where it gets really dangerous, because hypermania actually I quite enjoy, because I get a shitload done. I have great ideas as well, and some of it can be painful because I'm not sleeping, but like I can kind of deal with it. I know if I'm in a hypermanic episode, I kind of know what I need to do. Like I got to get in the gym, because fuck, I can lift some tin in the gym. Get in the sauna, and I just rinse, repeat, and dog walk. I'm constantly on the move, right? Lose a bit of weight because my steps go mental. In mania, now I've never gone into mania, because bipolar disorder has 2 types, right? You've got type 1 and type 2. I'm type 2. I have more depressive episodes with hypermania. I should have actually started this with that distinction, but anyway, you have with type 2 you can go into hypermania, but you have more depressive episodes, and I've had depression with psychosis. Type 1, you more have hypermania and mania, some depressive episodes, but it's more on the other side of the scale. And in mania, people do some crazy shit. Like they think that they go to the top of buildings and think they can fly and stuff. They start to think that there are like aliens coming out of the sky and landing, and basically we need to get out of it right now, otherwise we're fucked. They can get up in the middle of the night. I know somebody whose dad has got type 1, get up in the middle of the night, start drawing with crayons around the house and trash the whole house because he thought it was an intruder. And it's like, so then the financial impulsivity is crazy on that end of the scale, which leads to a lot of suicides, because people get into enormous debt in manic episodes. So that is bipolar. It's this crazy sliding scale. Obviously, I've missed out so many different variations of people's experiences with bipolar, but I tried to summarize there. It's incredibly deadly if not treated, and it just destroys people's lives. It almost destroyed my life. In fact, it almost destroyed Abby's life more, because if I had taken that decision and actually gone through with it, then she's the one to have to pick up the pieces with my parents and my family. So, I got my diagnosis, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I now understood what was going on. The crazy thing about my diagnosis story, which I've never told anybody, but the first meeting I had with a psychiatrist, Russell Square, like £500 an hour, I was getting a line bike to meet Abby, and I was waiting for this line bike to open this line bike, and then some fucker on a bike took my phone. And so I rocked up to my first psychiatry session, having not been diagnosed. Basically, I had been asking for help for so long. I was like, what do I do here? I've just had my phone stolen. Anyway, we did the meeting, and he basically diagnosed me after half an hour. He was like, you're type 2.
If you're like me, you probably skip most of these sponsor reads. So here's the deal. If you give me 1 minute of your time, I'll give you 1 minute of my suffering at 3 degrees Celsius. Because today's sponsor is Monk Ice Baths. Oh. Now, you've probably heard the hype around cold water therapy and the benefits that it has on your mental health with reduced stress and improved sleep, and then your physical health with muscle recovery and improved circulation. And maybe you've even put together a little DIY version where you turned a chest freezer into an ice bath. I'm really f***ing cold. Or you've bought one of those basic cheap crap versions, both of which come with a lot of complications. That's why Monk is your best bet, because it's... I've really lost my train of thought. which is why Monk is your best option if you're looking to seriously invest in your mental and physical health. Backed by elite athletes like Anthony Joshua, Monk is the most professional and accessible ice bath there is. So, if you're looking to be an elite performer and invest seriously in your mental and physical health, then go to discovermonk.com and use code SCALEWITHSOUL at checkout for a £100 discount, or go to the link in the description. Now, I love this, so I'm going to stay in for a bit longer, but I think you should get back to the episode. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a serious journey. It also sounds like bipolar's expensive to live with. You said, 170, 180 quid a month for pills, for meds, that doctors, 500 quid an hour.
It's crazy. I'm incredibly lucky that my parents offered to pay for the vast majority of my care. I went to the NHS and they basically said there's an 11-month waiting list. And I was like, I can't wait that long. Well, I've got some money. Let's just get in front of a psychiatrist who really only works with CEOs and entrepreneurs. That's why I found him.
And can you talk about this Israeli psychologist?
Psychologist, yeah.
What's his name again?
Yariv. He doesn't work with my psychiatrist whatsoever. They're completely removed. But I wanted to explore how I could improve my founder journey and improve being a better founder through psychology.
Can you differentiate between psychology and psychiatry?
A psychiatrist is a doctor of the mind. Sorry, a doctor of the brain. So they diagnose you and basically they're able to dispense like medication to sort you, right? Sort you out. It's like a GP for your brain. They do a little bit of talk therapy, but not much. Psychologists or a therapist, of course, they do more talk therapy. They can't prescribe medication, but they go deep into guiding you through various different like cognitive scenarios to try and get you to understand who you are better. And so what the psychologist is meant to supplement the psychiatrist. And in my case, it does quite well because my psychiatrist just basically dispenses me meds, makes sure it's like I go for a blood test every like 3 months, used to be every month, to make sure my kidney function's okay because of the meds. And then we adjust the meds based on those results or how I'm feeling. I was on previous meds that were making me very dizzy, like I couldn't stand up for like sometimes half a day. And then now we've changed brand and all this kind of prolonged release versus immediate release tablets, and that's changed. So it's great. So that's what psychiatrist does. And then obviously a psychologist. With Yariv, we do so much work around ego, my relationship with self, and how that drives decisions that I can make being a founder. And decisions I can make just creating things. And what am I happy with? Because I think that everybody says, I just want to be happy. Well, sorry, 98% of people say, I just want to be happy. Some people are, no, I don't give a fuck about happiness. I just want money, which is cool. I know a couple of people like that. But I think most people are like on this gravy train of trying to find what makes them tick. Obviously, it's the kind of the lexicon of happiness, right? How do you find that thing? What's your relationship with that thing around work and creating and identifying as a founder, if that's even helpful, but also being paid well for it and having an exit outcome? It's very, very, very difficult.
How does Yariv define the ego?
I can't remember, but I think what we've worked on with my ego is my ego has stemmed from wanting to be seen to be somebody, because that's not the relationship I had growing up, and it can drive me into these dark places because things aren't working out, or like, how resilient can I be in that moment? Fuck it. Okay, well, if I if this doesn't work, then people are going to see me as a failure. That all stems around my relationship with my ego, which I think is somewhat fragile. And actually, it's removing myself from that thought pattern and reframing ego as, now in particular, having had a baby, what really does ego mean if you stripped away the founder element of your life and you actually put in, well, first, actually, I'm a dad. So this is what I've tried to be working on, because if somebody says, oh, what do you do? I'd be like, I run companies. But actually, what I do day to day is I'm a dad, first and foremost. And then I try and make a living out of running companies, successfully and unsuccessfully. But that is not the main reason for my existence on planet Earth. And I think this comes back to ego, because then your ego is like, well, am I being a good dad, first and foremost? And I am, like, almost all the time. Like, we have a joke in my family, as in me and Abby. She keeps Finley alive,
and you keep him laughing,
and I keep him. I make him
make him
laugh.
smile.
Yeah. And to me, that is like the most special thing in the world. When I make him laugh, it actually makes me cry. I've never felt that before in my life. And so this is the whole work Yariv and I have been doing, which is, if you base that slightly different complexity of life now around your ego, actually the ego means nothing, because there is no ego. You look after and you bring life into the world, and then you basically rear life, although I don't want him to be sound like I'm rearing cattle, although sometimes it is like rearing cattle in that house, but that's the essence of like life. It's not building companies.
You've removed this identity as a founder,
Yeah,
which the ego latches onto these identities,
Yeah.
right? But then there's also this identity of being a dad,
yeah,
which is also, I'm sure, some sort of ego state as well.
yeah. But that identity as a dad makes me feel 10 times better than being a founder, because that identity of being a founder, because I think the founder identity is unhelpful, because I think it makes us unemployable as humans. Like, I would struggle to be employed, because immediately I'm like, well, I want to run the company, and like, this is what I want to do. Like, should be the strategy. So there's one element to that, but also it's like, well, I think entrepreneurship is much more of a nicer way of trying to understand ego, because at the end of the day, like, you and me are trying to create. That's what we love doing. Quite frankly, I don't enjoy running a company that much. Like, it's actually a bit boring. But it's the working with great people, ideating, it's having amazing ideas and seeing if they work, that thrill of like new people coming into a product, people watching your shit, people liking your stuff, and you creating something which makes you feel good, not what you think somebody else is gonna enjoy. That, I think, is entrepreneurship. Of course, then stems money, because like, if you're building something that other people enjoy, they hopefully should pay for it, and that's the essence of what we do, I think. And I think, like, bringing this back around to my ego, that's what I've had to really work so hard on. I'm nowhere near it yet, to be honest with you, AJ. But like, I have to do it, because it means that I'll live a better life for me, but also I'll actually, hopefully, my son will live a better life, because Daddy's kind of got his shit together a bit more and is not a complete mess that he was before. And that means that's almost purpose now.
What does working on your ego actually look like?
To me, it means making better decisions. I think working with your ego in a way which your ego overpowers certain situations because in a negative way, with negative connotations. For example, like slightly older, younger James would have made a decision based on what other people liked or wanted, or how he perceived himself to be with other people, and that would lead you down the wrong path when creating or even just living. Whereas now, actually, I think working with in a positive way, he goes, how do I make better decisions which align with who I want to be and purpose and what I enjoy. That's what we work with. I work with Yariv so much on decisions around, like, great example. Recently, me and Matteo made the decision to move part-time on Baseline, not because we don't want to build the company, because we've got some great investors, all this kind of stuff, but we just wanted to bootstrap it, and that meant that we needed to work part-time. It's then meant I've been like looking for other like part-time work. So I've had 2 great offers, and I'm hoping that there'll be some more. But I sat down with Yariv, and one is within like a venture setting. The other is within a venture studio setting, so creating companies, investing in companies. In fact, you know these. Yeah. Because we had a chat about it. Yeah, great. Okay, cool. So there's those 2 opportunities. Yariv and I sat down, and he was like, what does your ego say about both of these? So my ego said, on the kind of fun side, like, yeah, this would be great for my personal brand and to be seen like I'm investing, and I know I'd be good at that role, but I think it would basically be more ego driven than actually sing to like what I really, really enjoy. Then there is the other role, and I was like, yeah, actually, like, that sings to really who I am, because I love building companies, and I think I'll probably be happier in that role, but it doesn't give me the kind of status that role does, and what should I do? And he led that conversation. He asked me several questions around that, and I got to a good place where I could understood the different ego drivers, so I could make a better decision for me and who I want to be and how I want to be happy and how I want to work. Now, there's actually no right or wrong answer there. I can take either one of them. I just need to be comfortable that actually one would be great work, but there'd be a different level of expectations, there'd be status, etc., etc. And then there'd be potentially slightly less status in that role, but it's going to make me feel slightly different. And so I just need to choose based on how I want to move forward. I would not have done that if I wasn't working with Yariv. I would have chosen that one, because that sings to younger James. That sings to working for the sake of wanting people to see me in a certain way versus actually working to enjoy. Now, I think I still enjoy that immensely because I really like the people there, and that's a huge factor for me. But I want to stress that is not a negative on either of those roles. It's just the psychology of who I am as a human being individually and how I would make those decisions.
This sounds like an amazing shift, and the work that you've done is really clear. Can you give us a quick comparison of ego-driven younger James versus less ego-driven, more mature James, and what the differences are with who you want to be, what you want to do, what you value, anything like these?
I think younger James was more scatty, quite erratic, uh, again, making the wrong decisions based on the wrong outcomes. I think I had deep imposter syndrome back then. The funny thing is, I still have deep imposter syndrome. So when I'm eyeing up these both roles, I go, I can't fucking do any of them. What am I going to do? This is why I start companies, because that's why I feel the deepest sense of like I can hide. I think. And I've never said that before, but only to Yarim actually. But I think starting companies and being in that mold for me is almost like a defense mechanism.
What are you hiding from?
What other people think of me.
Anyone in particular?
People that I think I should respect in the industry finding me out because like I can't do the job or I'm shit at it, and then going basically saying to all their mates like, we found him out, he's shite.
I'm going to push your levels of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Who are these people?
I'm not going to name names. And actually, there's... I think most entrepreneurs' dreams are around building a business that you can make a shit ton of money from and exit from. And I think the exit community, let's put it that way, is where I get my most deep vulnerabilities from. I've got some really great friends in there as well, but I think I feel a pressure, wanting to be them, and I think that's where it comes from. And again, you look up to people like Chris Donnelly and Dan, and every sinew in my body wants to be like that. Probably for the wrong reasons. And this is where ego comes in.
And then the less ego-driven self, more mature James.
The more mature James looks at what do I need to do to be happy and comfortable? And what does the family need to be comfortable? Because actually, when you look at it, it's not that much money. We're talking like profitably, if you can be like £500,000 up, possibly 750k up a year profit, you're flying.
It's not insignificant.
No, but people think like it needs to be like 100 mil.
Got you.
So when you compare it to like 100 mil versus 500k or 750k in the green, where you can angel invest 10k or 20k into 10 or 5 companies a year, you can go and buy another property. You can afford private school fees for however long you want, for literally for the next 15 years. That is where my attitudes towards entrepreneurship has changed dramatically, because I used to think, and this has only happened very, very, very recently, and actually it was Alex McDonald who kind of gave me license to think like this. Because when I first started raising money for Baseline, he said, please don't raise from venture. And I was like, what? Why? Everyone's raising from venture. He was like, go and raise a small amount, build a great business, and try and live as stress-free as possible, because he's had experience with bipolar disorder. Tragically, let's put it that way. And he knows what stress does to the condition. So it was that moment where I was kind of given license to just like go, this is somebody that I so deeply respect and like, and has been immensely helpful, giving me, it's just going, just build a great business and don't worry about venture. And then it started me thinking, well, what do I need to be comfortable? And if one of these companies, or if what an investment does make serious wealth. Great. But you know what? There is a whole world where you can live very, very, very well. And it doesn't actually take that much money to do. I think that's really important.
Feels like these two words that you landed on feel like the most impactful two words: happy and comfortable.
Yeah.
How did you come to those as opposed to fulfilled, proud, energized? How did you come to happy and comfortable?
I was sick and tired of not being happy.
That makes sense.
And I was trying to figure out why. Why was I not happy? I felt happiness comes from being comfortable. Mostly financially. Like my dream is to have financial freedom. Because, and again, this comes back to like, I think financial freedom is in and around that kind of ballpark of being comfortable in those numbers. And so they intertwine nicely because I long for a feeling of being comfortable because I'm constantly working and I can never switch off. And actually just being comfortable with that too is fine. I'm now comfortable with the amount I work, even though Abby the other day said, who is a lawyer, which is hilarious. She said, James, you work insane hours. Stop. And I was just sat on my laptop going, this is fucking great. I'm going to build a PRD for a microsas I'm sending to an engineer on artwork to build because I thought it was fun. That's me comfortable. So that's why I landed on that comfortability, because being comfortable, whether it's working hard or hardly working, is massive. And being happy derives from my quest for being so unhappy for so long. And if you're happy, nothing else matters. I'm actually not in that place at the moment because I think that I'm happy with. I've got so much joy from my son, but would I say I'm happy day in, day out? I can be. I'm looking for like what that is in my working life still.
So it's like happiness is the lagging indicator, but you're not that aware of the leading indicators.
Correct.
You mentioned earlier in the conversation this idea of like what's enough, and now you've spoken about it with the financial difference. And it sounds like the ego-driven version of what was enough for you was £100 million exit, being in the upper echelons of startup founders, being at the big boy table, that sort of thing, right? Yeah. Being recognized and like respected by the exit crew. Yeah. And now it feels like what's enough is how much does it take for us as a family to feel really happy and comfortable? Yeah. Are there any other big differences that you've noticed?
There's many moments where I still feel not good enough. So I've not mastered that. In fact, I engaged with Yarav again recently and was like, we need to explore not feeling good enough. I see it a lot in my day-to-day life where there'll be things that trigger that moment, whether that's in my friendships, outside of the founder community, to be honest with you.
Can you give some examples?
As founders, we sacrifice a lot, and for good reason. I certainly do. There's be some weeks where I don't like speak to my outside friends, and I then will see their relationships with other friends that I know and all that kind of stuff, and it makes me not feel good enough because I'm like, am I being left out, or am I just like wasting time, or am I the reason? Like, I'm not engaging with them, but I'm doing other shit. I think being a dad, I found that difficult too because none of my friends have kids, and none of my friends my age have kids, and so there's this constant like struggle, I feel, of like old life, new life, and like new life dictates that at 7 a.m. in the morning I'm getting Finley out of bed and we're going to spend the next 2 hours together. Same with, I don't like missing bedtime at 7, so it's difficult to go out and see people, especially at this age. And so I feel like I'm missing out on those friendships, and also those friendships have changed so dramatically that I'm not good enough. I think it's an insecurity that has come from wanting to have friends, deep friendships. I feel my friendships aren't that deep. I think the deepest friendship I have is with my wife. And I see my other friends having very deep relationships, going to football matches and like go out to the pub on a Friday, and or like they'll be in their own individual WhatsApp groups, which I'm not in, and I don't feel like I have those deep relationships or connections with those friends. And then I have my entrepreneur friends, which they're friends, but I'm not sure how deep they are either. And so then I'm like, my friends are getting married on the kind of social side. They're getting married now, and they're all picking their like groomsmen and their best men, and I'm not in them. So I'm like, don't feel good enough. And it's been plaguing me for years. And God, man, I'm like, oh, I wish I could just turn this off. How amazing would it be just to turn it off and not to give a fuck? Because I know people who I genuinely don't give a fuck. I'm like, how do you do it? How the fuck do you do it? So that's what is driving that not feeling good enough feeling.
That is very real, very down to earth, very relatable.
Although when you say relatable, it's crazy because I'm like, yeah, who's gonna fucking relate to that?
I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think you always question about how relationship dynamics change over time, and then what that means, where we have expectations. Yeah, just how this choice of how we're living our life impacts what we had before, and there's that loss, which we're more susceptible to. Like loss aversion is a bias that we all have and face. But actually what you've gained is like time with your son, which looking back in 10, 15 years, you'll probably think, I'm pretty happy I didn't go to the football game. I went to the pub because actually I did bedtime and I did wake up every day.
That's the one thing that I am now reconciling with. It's like a CBT technique. It's like a self-imposed CBT technique, right? That I'm doing at the moment, which is when those feelings comes up, I have to reframe them and go, well, yeah, but I'm never, ever going to get this time again with my son. And he's at these amazingly beautiful years of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, 10 months where smiling, responsive to you, sees you every single time he sees me, he smiles. There is no better feeling than that on earth. There is no like, oh, like come to the pub moment where I'll start crying. Whereas I'll well up when I pick him up and like as an aeroplane and he just starts chuckling like he's never chuckled before. And I'm like, wow. That is a constant now CBT technique that I need to rewire my brain with. This is it. It's about building new neural pathways which align with a different set of emotions and questions which pop up instantly in your head, which either negative or somebody doesn't like me, so therefore you're not good enough, or like, oh, you haven't been invited to that, or you're not doing that, or you haven't spoke to him, but who gives a shit? Like, you're bringing up a son. I'm getting there slowly.
I can see.
Yeah, and I thought it would happen like as soon as he was born. In fact, I found the first 7 weeks incredibly difficult. Like I didn't like it. That feels awful to say, but quite frankly, for the first like 12 weeks, he's just a fucking blob that literally eats, well, sucks on a boob, cries, throws up, sucks on a bottle, like, and then looks at you and goes to sleep and then poos and wheezes. That's all they are. And actually, I was like, I don't enjoy this. I wasn't getting much sleep, which for me is like the number one predicator of my health, and I was just feeling miserable. There was moments in there were extraordinary. Like, I'll never forget the moment he met my dad for the first time. My dad's 76 and has had his health issues, and it's making me emotional thinking about it now. And yeah, it's just, see, those are the moments where you're like, all of this was worth it. Like, who gives a fuck about what we do day in, day out? Like, when you can watch your dad cuddle his grandson. Oh, God, it's amazing. But yeah, it was really difficult. And then we invested a lot in a night nanny, and a sleep coach for him, which was the best investment we've ever made, because it basically meant he slept through the night at 7 weeks. So we actually got our lives back. We got our sex life back. We got everything back, and we were like, wow, we can actually parent.
Wow. I can really tell how passionate you are and how confident you are with when you talk about the sort of newfound purpose or newfound focus of what's important in life. And I think lots of founder parents go through that. It doesn't mean you lose your purpose around wanting to make an impact and wanting to create, and wanting to build businesses and wanting to be financially secure. You just sort of, I've heard people speak about having dual purposes. And I can really feel the amount of work that you've done and the impact of you sharing so openly.
If you don't mind,
Please.
you lost your dad.
Yeah.
When you were 9?
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to impact you when you have kids?
It's a great question, because I was thinking about that as you were talking about your dad and seeing his grandson. I was like, well, my son or daughter's never going to have that. Obviously, I look at my mum, she's incredible, and she'll be strict as fuck with that baby, that's for sure. That poor kid won't know what hit it. How will that impact me with having kids? I think it'll be very healing. I think, but then again, I don't want to expect that, because then I'm expecting something from an unborn child.
Yes.
Already, that's selfish.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm trying to.
That's a really good point.
Figure out what that balance is. I think it'll probably cause me to want to understand myself even more. Like, I've done lots of therapy in case, not as much as you, I don't think, but invested in personal development. But I cannot wait to be a dad. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm very excited to be a dad. I can definitely fucking wait.
I think you spoke to Abby about this, didn't you?
Yeah. I would love to have kids in my late 30s in my ideal world. And Lara and I are the same age.
How old are you now?
27.
Yeah, you've got.
But we've kind of landed on like the 34, 35 rough mark. That's hopeful. You can't plan all these things. Sometimes shit just happens. But
yeah, I didn't have much of a choice.
Didn't you?
Well, Abby's 37. She'll be 38 in November. And I'm just turned 30. We knew that if we wanted kids, we needed to do it soon.
Makes sense.
I would have loved to have waited too. But we actually had 2 miscarriages.
Oh, wow.
One was early, one was a bit later. And that was very, very difficult. But meant that everything was even more worth it when Finley came out and he was healthy and everything. But that was very difficult.
What did you take from that experience?
First miscarriage, I was kind of, it sounds awful to say, but I was kind of relieved because I just wasn't ready for it at all. I was like, oh God. Like, I need more of a run up to this. Second miscarriage was about a year later. 6 months later. And I was a bit more ready having thought about it. And I was like, I think I could do this. And it was a baby girl. And I was gutted about that. I think Abby she still wasn't quite there. I was like, why aren't we using like a condom? Why are we doing this to ourselves if we're both a bit on the... But are we fucking idiots? Clearly. And so then, yeah, the third go was... What did I take from it? I took from the second that I was ready to have children. I wanted them then. And more that I wanted them with her. That felt odd because none of my friends were having kids. Again, we can spin back this world that I used to live in, somewhat still do, but around like constantly comparing my situation to my friends to kind of get validation. Okay, well, I'll just compare it to like those 4 people. None of them having kids, therefore I probably shouldn't. Versus actually doing what I wanted to do. With Finley, we did what I wanted to do. Or what we wanted to do as a couple. So yeah.
Quick pause to say, if you found this valuable, then think about who you know who might also find it valuable. Because leaders helping other leaders makes the journey that much easier. Beautiful story. Wow, thank you so much for sharing. That's all we have time for, but mate, this has been sensational. I always knew that our conversation would be very real, very raw, as we both like.
Yeah.
As a last question, I'm trying to give back to amazing guests like you who come on, share stories, share learnings. And so, assuming this episode is listened to by lots of entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial people, what's something that you would love support or experience shares around?
3 things. No, 2 things.
You can go for 3 if you want.
Might go for 3. No, actually, I'll go for 2.
You might as well tell us them all now. It's
So-
making me curious.
Yes. So one, I was like, someone give me a job.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'm really good at loads of stuff. So that's one thing. Number 2 is I literally today started a WhatsApp group for dads. And dads that build companies. And I think I said in the group, as I set it up, and I don't know how many members there was 100 when I last checked.
From this morning.
From this morning, yeah.
Yeah. As you do.
As you do, yeah. And now I've got the ex-head of design at Gymshark and community who's in the group who messaged me going, "Can I help you build this?" I was like, "Yes, you can, my friend, because I don't have time." The reason why I set that group up, and the reason why, if somebody's listening to this and they'd like to join it, is not because I'm going to be making money off this yet. It is because when I found out that Abby was pregnant, I was quite worried about how the impact it would have on me. Even though I wanted it and wanted to have the baby, I was just concerned about like, how's it going to impact me as a founder? Like, who can I speak to? Are there resources? Is there a community? Can I just like see people? Like, I just want some support. I don't think that existed. Like, we spoke about the founders group, but like founders, I'm not in founders, and there's obviously tens of thousands of founders out there who aren't in founders. And so I was just like, oh, I'd love a place where I know that there's men in there that can get me. Then when he was born, I was raising around and I was like, fuck, okay, well, how am I gonna raise a round of funding? How am I gonna build this company? Like, I've got no sleep, my productivity's shot, I can't go to the gym, like nothing. And then you're like, well, I love this baby, so like, but who can I speak to? Same problem. I was like, shit. And so I've been thinking about this for a while, which is how can I bring people together who are men, who notoriously are shit at speaking about their feelings. And everybody's experience being a dad is different. And I will have advice and things to share that other men in that group won't have thought about or will resonate with, and it should make for a more wholesome, quite very niche community. But like, I think niche communities are where the world should be built now. And so if you want to join that community, I'll send AJ a link and he'll put it in the show notes. And then the third is, if you know anybody who's bipolar, or you are watching this and you suspect that you have bipolar disorder, come and see what we're doing at Baseline, because we want to, and we are building the products, tools, and services to help the bipolar community live better. What does that look like? Well, a marketplace to access bipolar specific care doesn't exist. Needs to. An app around community content and mood analysis, which integrates with your wearables, which is quite sick. And then a whole load of different microsasses that you can purchase. We're building it in a way which is community driven. Actually, we've got like 3 or 4 members of our community helping us build this now. And one's joined as CTO, one's joining as head of brand partnerships in the US. So come and join what we're doing if you're bipolar, because there is a place for you to exist.
Very powerful and very succinct. Well done. Thank you so much, mate. This has been unreal.
Thank you for having me.